August of 34, I found Beatrice Hollins nailed to the First Baptist oak door, not with iron, but with shame. 6 feet of whitewashed cruelty, her melted face painted crude and mocking for all God's town to see. Every scar, every twisted inch of skin the kerosene fire left behind, right there on the church threshold like some kind of grotesque wanted poster. Below it, letters dripping like tears. Murderer. Leave by Sunday or burn like he did. Folks gathered round, whispering behind their hands. Some laughed, nervous, cruel little sounds that make you ashamed to be human. Most just stared, like watching a dog get kicked and doing nothing about it. Now I ain't no hero, just a shopkeeper who lost his wife to the flu in '29, been keeping my head down ever since. But Dorothea, God rest her, she made me promise something before she passed. By dawn Sunday, either I'd keep that promise, or they'd bury us both. Reckon I didn't have much choice in the matter. That Wednesday morning started like any other. I was sweeping flour dust off the boards outside Tate's General Store. Same store my daddy built in 1891, same broom Dorothea used every morning for 20 years. Radio inside was crackling something about dust storms hitting Kansas. My nephew Oswin, 14 and skinny as a fence post, was stacking cans of peaches like his life depended on it. "Uncle Elwood," he called through the screen door, "we got maybe 10 customers all week. How we gonna make the bank payment?" "Same way we always do, boy, one day at a time." That's when I heard the church bell ring wrong. Not the steady Sunday call, but frantic, broken, like somebody yanking the rope who didn't know what they were doing. Then a woman's voice carried down Main Street, high and terrible. I dropped the broom. Oswin burst through the door. "Uncle, stay here." But he followed anyway. 14-year-old boys being what they are. By the time we reached First Baptist, maybe 40 folks had gathered. Some pointing, some whispering, a few laughing that nervous way people do when they know they're watching something wrong but ain't got the spine to stop it. Reverend Hoskins stood on the church steps, wringing his hands like a wet dish rag, mouth opening and closing with nothing coming out. Then I saw it. 6 feet of whitewash painted right on that oak door, oak that had stood there since 1867, survived drought and tornado and every manner of sin this town could conjure. Someone had taken their time, used real artistic skill to paint Beatrice Holland's face, every melted inch of it. The left side where the kerosene lamp fire had caught her, skin twisted like candle wax, hairline destroyed, eye drooping where the heat had damaged the muscles beneath. Below the portrait, dripping letters, "Murderer, leave by Sunday or burn like he did." My stomach turned over. Not from the image. I'd seen Beatrice's scars before, bought grain from her last month, treated her like any other customer. But from the cruelty of it. Someone had studied her face, memorized every ruined detail, then put it on public display like a trophy. "Reckon that's about as Christian as spitting in the collection plate," I muttered. Oswin's hand found my elbow. "Uncle Elwood, that ain't right." "No, boy, it ain't." That's when I heard the voice, smooth as snake oil, twice as poisonous. "Shame when a woman murders her husband and thinks she can stay in decent society." Luke Hollins stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed over his chest like a judge at sentencing. His brothers flanked him, Nathan with that mean little smile he wore when hurting things, Samuel silent and cold as January. Luke caught my eye, held it, dared me to say different. The crowd murmured agreement. Someone said, "She always was peculiar." Another, "Probably planned it all along." I felt my hands clench, wanted to speak up, wanted to tell them they were fools believing Holland's lies. But I'd learned in 42 years that speaking truth to power mostly just gets you hurt, so I stayed quiet for about 10 more seconds. Then I saw her, just a shadow at my store window across the street, pressed against the glass like a moth trying to get away from flame. Beatrice. Watching her own humiliation from 100 yards away, unable to look away, unable to hide. And I remembered Dorothea's voice, clear as if she was standing beside me. "Don't let loneliness make you selfish, Elwood. There'll come a day when somebody needs what we couldn't give each other. Promise me you won't turn away." I'd promised. 3 hours before she died, her hand cold in mine, I'd promised. "Excuse me," I said, pushing through the crowd. "Where you going, Tate?" Luke called after me, amusement in his voice. I didn't answer. Crossed Main Street with Oswin half running to keep up, dust kicking up around my boots. Pushed open my store door. The bell chimed, cheerful, ignorant of what was coming. Beatrice stood in the back corner between the flour sacks and the wall, shawl pulled over her head, hands shaken so hard I could see it from 20 feet away. She'd turned her scarred side to the wall, like she could make herself disappear if she just pressed hard enough. "Miss Beatrice," I said quiet. "I seen what they done." She flinched at her name, wouldn't look at me. "I didn't kill him," she whispered. "I swear before God I didn't." I walked closer, slow, like approaching a spooked horse. "Reckon I believe you." Her head came up then, just an inch, just enough to meet my eyes with hers. The desperation in that look would have broken a stone heart. Her left eye drooped where the fire had damaged it, her hairline a jagged mess of scar tissue, but she was still a person, still human, still deserving of dignity. "You're safe here," I told her. "Long as I got breath in my body, you're safe here." That's when my store bell chimed again. Luke Hollins stepped inside, his brothers right behind him, boots tracking Oklahoma dust across Dorothea's clean floor. The floor she'd swept every blessed morning for 20 years. Luke smiled. Wasn't a pleasant thing to see. "Tate," he said soft, "we need to have a word about your guest." Luke Hollins didn't shout. That was the thing about him. He never raised his voice, never lost his temper. Made him more dangerous than Nathan's meanness or Samuel's silence ever could. He walked slow through my store, running his fingers along the counter like he owned it. "Nice place you got here, Tate. Your daddy built it, didn't he?" 1891, if memory serves. "What do you want, Luke?" "Just expressing concern." He picked up a can of peaches, turned it over in his hands. "See, Beatrice there, she's family. Was married to our brother Thomas, God rest his soul, and we're worried about her state of mind." "She seems fine to me." Nathan laughed, sharp and ugly. "Fine. She murdered our brother, burned him alive in his own house." "She's been accused," I said careful. "Ain't been tried, ain't been convicted." Luke set the can down, didn't put it back proper, just left it there on its side, rolling slow. Disrespect, deliberate and small. "Here's the thing, Tate. That 40 acres Thomas left her, legally it should come to us, blood family. But there's complications. Back taxes, liens, legal matters. Be easier if she just moved on." "Moved on where?" "Don't much care." Luke's smile never reached his eyes. "But housing her here, that's gonna cause you problems. Your store does right good business. Shame if folks stop shopping here." Behind me, I heard Beatrice's breath catch. Small, terrified sound. Samuel stepped forward then, first words I'd heard from him all morning. "We'll be back tomorrow, Tate. Give her our message." His eyes went past me, fixed on Beatrice. "Tell her we're watching." They left. Bell chimed cheerful as they went. I locked the door behind him, threw the bolt. My hands were shaken, from anger, from fear, couldn't tell which. Oswin appeared from the back room where he'd been hiding, face pale. "Uncle Elwood, they're gonna hurt you." "Maybe." I walked to the counter, touched Dorothea's photograph, ritual I had when making hard decisions. Her face smiled up at me from behind the glass, young and healthy, the way she looked before the influenza took her. "But that don't change what's right." I turned to Beatrice, still pressed against the wall. "Miss Beatrice, I got a spare room above the store. Used to be Dorothea's sewing room. Ain't much, but it's got a lock on the inside." She stared at me like I'd spoke Chinese. "Why?" "Because what they did was wrong, and because my wife would have wanted me to." Her hand went to her scarred cheek. Habit, I'd learn later, touching it like she could smooth it away. "Your wife. She passed?" 5 years back. Influenza." "I'm sorry." "Me too." We stood there a moment, two people who'd lost things they couldn't get back. Then Beatrice started crying. Not loud sobbing, just silent tears tracking down her face, over the ruined skin, dripping off her chin. "I can't pay you," she whispered. "Didn't ask you to. They'll come after you. The Hollands, they own half this county. They'll..." "Let 'em come." She looked at me then, really looked, searching my face for the lie, the angle, the thing I wanted in return. I could see her whole life was written in that look, every man who'd hurt her, every promise that turned to ash. "Come on," I said, gentle. "Let's get you settled before dark." The room was small. Single bed with an iron frame, washstand, window facing the alley instead of Main Street. Private, like Dorothea's sewing machine sat in the corner, covered in dust. I hadn't been able to clear it out, couldn't bring myself to move her things. Beatrice touched the machine, fingers light as prayer. She made beautiful things? Yes, ma'am. Quilts mostly, dresses for the church ladies. Had a gift for it. I showed her the lock, the window latch. "You're safe here. Nobody gets past me." Oswin appeared with blankets and a pitcher of water, tiptoeing like he was in church. "Ma'am," he said, setting him on the washstand. His ears went red. Boy wasn't used to talking to women, especially ones who'd been through what she had. Beatrice's face crumpled. "Thank you, both of you. I don't know what I did to deserve—" "You don't gotta deserve kindness," Oswin said suddenly. His voice cracked halfway through, 14 years old and trying to be a man. "Uncle Elwood says helping folks is what keeps us human." After we left, I heard the lock click. Good. She needed to feel safe, needed to know she controlled something in her life again. Downstairs, I stood at the window, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Dust storm brewing out west. Could see the brown haze climbing the sky. Storm season, folks called it. Seemed fittin'. Oswin came and stood beside me. "Uncle Elwood, what happens if they really come?" "Then we deal with it." "But what if—" "Oswin," I put my hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs you. Sometimes it costs you everything. But the day you stop doing it 'cause you're scared, that's the day you stop being worth the space you take up." He nodded, but I could see he was still scared. Hell, I was scared too. I was locking up for the night, checking the bolt twice, something I never used to do, when I saw him. Torches. 17 of them, moving down Main Street like a river of fire, voices raised in something between song and snarl. At the front, Luke Hollins carried a rope coiled over his shoulder. A rope. My blood went cold. "Oswin!" I shouted up the stairs. "Get your daddy's rifle, now!" 17 torches. 17 men. And me with 3 bullets in a rifle I hadn't fired since Oswin's daddy died in '32. I bolted the door, shoved a barrel against it for good measure. "Beatrice," I hollered up the stairs. "Stay in your room, lock the door. Don't come out no matter what you hear." Oswin came thundering down with the Winchester, hands shaking so bad I worried he'd drop it. "Uncle Elwood, I can shoot. Daddy taught me." "Ain't gonna be shooting, not if I can help it." I took the rifle, checked the chamber, loaded, safety on. My hands were steadier than I expected. Probably shock. "You stay inside, you hear me?" "But—" "That's an order, boy." I stepped onto the boardwalk. The crowd went quiet, sudden, complete, like someone had thrown a blanket over 'em. 40, maybe 50 men now, not just 17. Word spreads fast in a town this size. Some I recognized. Farmers I'd extended credit to, men who'd bought their seed from me every spring for 20 years. Others were drifters, hired guns with that hollow look around the eyes that comes from doing violence for money. Luke Hollins stood at the front, torch held high. Firelight danced across his face, made him look like something out of the Old Testament, righteous and terrible. "Evening, Tate." His voice carried easy, practiced. "Nice night for justice." "Justice?" I kept the rifle at my side, barrel pointed down, non-threatening. "This look like a courtroom to you?" Nathan Hollins spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Courtrooms for folks who deserve trials." "Murderers deserve rope." The crowd roared agreement, mob sound, animal sound, the noise men make when they've decided they're righteous, and anyone who disagrees is damned. Someone threw a rock, crashed through my front window, glass exploding inward. I heard Oswin yelp inside. My jaw clenched. I raised the rifle, still pointed down, but the message was clear. Next man throws something gets an answer he won't like. Luke held up his hand. Crowd quieted like dogs called to heel. "Tate, You're a reasonable man. This don't have to get ugly. Send out the woman. We'll handle this quick and Christian-like. Christian-like. I let the words hang. That what you call a mob with torches? She killed our brother. Samuel's voice, flat and cold. She's been accused, ain't been tried, ain't been convicted. I looked at the faces in the crowd, men I'd known my whole life, suddenly strangers. Last I checked, we still got laws in this territory. Luke's smile never wavered. Laws are for towns with sheriffs. You seen Sheriff Morrison lately? Deliberate. He wanted everyone to know the sheriff, his cousin, was conveniently absent. The fix was in, had been from the start. The crowd laughed. Someone yelled, "Tate's gone soft." Another, "Probably sweet on her himself." My hands tightened on the rifle. You'd kill a woman without trial? Without evidence? Just on your say-so? We got evidence, Nathan snarled. She was there when Thomas died. House burned down around him. That's all the evidence God needs. And I got evidence you're a liar. I shouldn't have said it. Knew it soon as the words left my mouth. But rage makes you stupid, and I was tired of biting my tongue. The crowd surged forward. I raised the rifle, this time pointed at Luke's chest. Back off. You'd die for a woman you barely know? Luke's voice was soft, curious, like he genuinely couldn't understand. I thought about Dorothea. Thought about her hand in mine, cold and frail, making me promise. Thought about 20 years of waking up beside someone who made you better than you were alone. Thought about losing that and having to live with the hole it left. I'd die for what's right, I said. If you can't tell the difference, that's your failing, not mine. Silence. Complete and total. The kind that comes before violence or surrender, could go either way. Then a voice from the back, old, raspy, but clear. Elwood Tate's always been a decent man. Maybe we should listen. Doc Simons pushed through the crowd, medical bag in hand. 70 years old if he was a day, bent with age but his eyes sharp. Luke, you really want to lynch a woman without trial? That's what we've come to? Luke rounded on him. Doc, you siding with a murderer? I'm siding with a man who wants a fair trial. Remember those? The crowd shifted, doubt creeping in like water through a cracked dam. Some men lowered their torches. Others looked away, shame written on their faces. Then hoofbeats, fast, deliberate. Marshal Clyde Wickham rode up, badge gleaming in the firelight. What's all this commotion? Playin' innocent, like he hadn't known, like he hadn't been waiting for this exact moment. Just encouraging Miss Beatrice to move along, Luke said smooth, for her own safety. The marshal looked at me, at the rifle, at the broken window. That right, Tate? You harboring a fugitive? She ain't a fugitive. You issued a warrant? Caught. He hadn't. Couldn't. Not without evidence. Not yet. But there's been complaints. I'm ordering you to turn her over for protective custody. Protective custody. I kept my voice level. In a cell next to drunks and thieves? No, sir. Then you're obstructing justice. Show me the warrant. I'll show you the door. Standoff. The marshal couldn't legally force it. Not yet. But the promise was there in his eyes. This wasn't over. Luke coiled his rope, slow, deliberate. This ain't finished, Tate. Reckon it is for tonight. The marshal tipped his hat. I'll be back tomorrow with papers. Have her ready. He looked at the crowd. Rest of you, go home. Show's over. They dispersed slow, reluctant, like dogs called off a hunt. Some wouldn't meet my eyes. Others stared with open hatred. The town had divided, and I'd forced them to choose sides. I stayed on that boardwalk until the last torch disappeared. My legs were shaken, adrenaline draining out, leaving me hollow. Oswin came out, rifle in his hands now. Uncle, you were so brave. Wasn't brave. Was just the right thing. Inside, I climbed the stairs. Beatrice's door was cracked open. She'd heard everything. Her face was wet with tears, eyes red and swollen. Why? The word broke coming out. Why risk everything? I touched Dorothea's photograph in my pocket, carried it everywhere now, talisman against loneliness. Because somebody once made me promise not to turn away. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language, like kindness was something she'd forgotten existed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing that rope. coiled and waiting. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. Boots on the back stairs. Slow, deliberate. Someone trying to stay quiet. I reached for the rifle, just as Oswin burst through my door, eyes wide as saucers. "Uncle," he whispered, breathless. "I found something. About the fire. About who really started it." Oswin held up my store ledger, the accounts book I'd kept since Daddy died in 28. Page was marked with a scrap of fabric, Dorothea's handwriting in the margin. "Look," he whispered, pointing to an entry from July 1933. "Holland's brothers owe 847. Grain, supplies, tools, never paid." "I know, boy. Been trying to collect for over a year." "That ain't the important part." His finger moved to Dorothea's note, written careful in pencil. "Luke Hollins threatened to burn store if Ian presses for payment. Spoke to Doc Simons, advised to keep record but don't pursue. DT." The words hit me like a fist. Dorothea had known, had been protecting me even then, months before the influenza took her. "There's more." Oswin pulled out a loose paper, prescription pad, Doc's handwriting. 3 names listed. Martha Beckham, burned out, 1930. Samuel Cross, barn fire, 1931. Beatrice Hollins, house fire, 1934. My blood ran cold. Doc's been tracking him. For years, looks like. Oswin's voice shook. "Uncle Elwood, they got a pattern. Anyone who crosses them, burns." I stared at those names. 3 people, 3 fires. And now Beatrice, their brother's widow, standing between them and 40 acres of prime land. "Where'd you find this?" "Tucked in the ledger." "Think Miss Dorothea was keeping Doc's records safe." He paused. "Uncle, we're next. You know that, right?" I did know, had known since I saw that rope, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "Then we best be ready." Next morning came too fast. Sun rose red through the dust. Old-timers called it a blood sky, said it meant violence coming. I tried to open the store like normal, sweep the boardwalk, stack the shelves, pretend everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. Only 3 customers all day. Mrs. Henderson bought flour, wouldn't look me in the eye, said her husband told her not to come, but she needed to bake. Paid exact change, left quick. Old Mr. Chen came for tobacco, nodded respectful, but didn't linger. And Jacob Moss, colored man who did odd jobs around town, slipped in the back door. "Mr. Tate," he said quiet, "I gotta warn you. Holland's been hiring men, paying $2 a day for security work. That's what they callin' it." "Security? How many men?" "Dozen, maybe more. Drifters mostly. The kind who don't ask questions long as the money's good." He shifted uncomfortably. "I wanted to help, but I got a wife and babies. If the Hollands find out I talked to you—" "I understand. Thank you for coming." After he left, I stood at the counter, adding sums in my head. A dozen hired guns plus the 3 brothers plus whoever in town they'd convinced or scared into joining. We were looking at 20, maybe 30 men. Against me, Oswin, and whoever was fool enough to stand with us. Those weren't survivable odds. Around noon, Doc Simons knocked on the back door. 3 quick raps, 2 slow. Our old signal from when we used to play cards on Friday nights, before Dorothea died, before everything went to hell. I let him in. He looked 10 years older than yesterday, shoulders bent like he was carrying something heavy. "I need to show you something." He pulled a folder from his medical bag. "I examined Beatrice the day after the fire, documented everything. The photographs inside made my stomach turn. Burns on her arms, defensive wounds," Doc explained. "Pattern showed she'd been protecting her face and belly from someone, not starting a fire, defending against one. Her husband beat her that night," Doc said quiet. "She was pregnant, about 3 months. Lost the baby from the beating. That's what Thomas was really mad about. She'd told him she wanted to leave." Jesus Christ. He knocked over the kerosene lamp during it. She crawled out. He was too drunk to follow. Doc's hands shook as he put the photographs away. "I should have spoke up then, should have testified, but I was scared. And now you're speaking up. Better late than never, I suppose." He looked me in the eye. "Elwood, they're coming tonight. I heard Luke talking at the barber shop. Said they're tired of waiting for the law." "Let 'em come." You can't fight 30 men. Maybe not. But I can make 'em regret tryin'. The day crawled by like molasses. Beatrice stayed upstairs. I could hear her pacing boards creaking overhead. Oswin cleaned the rifle 3 times, checked the ammunition, then cleaned it again. Nervous energy, needing something to do with his hands. Around 4 o'clock, the dogs started barking. All of 'em, up and down Main Street, that continuous howling that means something's wrong. Storm coming maybe, or worse. I looked out the window. Sky was clear, no clouds, no dust. Just the dogs, knowing what we didn't yet. By 6, the street was empty. Not a soul walking, not a wagon moving. Shutters closed up and down the block. Town had decided to look the other way. Let whatever was gonna happen just happen. Uncle Elwood? Oswin's voice was small. I'm scared. Me too, boy. What do we do? I thought about Dorothea, about her promise. About Beatrice upstairs, hiding from a world that wanted her dead for surviving her husband's violence. About right and wrong and the line between 'em that seemed so clear in daylight and so blurred come nightfall. We stand, I said. That's all we can do. We stand. 7 o'clock. Sunset, painting the dust orange and gold. Beautiful, if you ignored what was coming. Then I saw him. Not 17 torches this time. 30, maybe more. River of fire flowing down Main Street, voices raised in something that wasn't quite singing and wasn't quite yelling. Chant, maybe, war cry. At the front, Luke Hollins carried that rope again. Behind him, his brothers. Behind them, faces I recognized and faces I didn't. All of them moving with purpose, with certainty, with the terrible momentum of a mob that's decided justice and vengeance are the same damn thing. I checked the rifle. 3 bullets. 30 men. Math wasn't in our favor. Oswin, I need you to do something for me. What? Go out the back. Run to Doc's house. Tell him to get Beatrice out of town tonight. Don't matter where. Just away. But Uncle, now boy? He went. Didn't want to, but he went. Good kid. Too good for what was about to happen. I stepped onto the boardwalk alone. The mob stopped 10 feet away. Close enough I could smell the kerosene on their torches, see the wild light in their eyes. Men turned monsters by fear and greed and the peculiar madness that comes from believing you're righteous. Luke smiled. Last chance, Tate. Send her out, or we come in and get her. Over my dead body. That, Nathan said, finger in his gun belt, can be arranged. That's when the first torch flew through my broken window, then another, then 3 more, all at once, glass shattering, flames catching on dry wood and old fabric, and 40 years of my life going up like kindling. My store was burning, and I was still standing in front of it, rifle raised, knowing I couldn't stop what was coming but too stubborn to step aside. Doc Simons appeared out of nowhere, came running from his office with a bucket, started throwing water on the flames. Then Mrs. Henderson's husband, then Jacob Moss, then 5, 10, 15 townspeople, forming a chain from the water pump to my store. The mob fell back, confused. Hadn't expected resistance. Hadn't counted on decent folks finding their spine. What the hell you doing? Luke shouted at the volunteers. Saving a man's livelihood, Doc called back. You got a problem with that? We fought that fire for 3 hours. Saved maybe half the store. Front was gutted, but the back rooms and upstairs survived. By the time the last ember died, I was covered in soot and ash, hands blistered from hot wood, lungs burning from smoke. The mob had dispersed. Even fanatics get tired eventually. I found Beatrice in her room, pressed into the corner where the walls met, rocking back and forth. When I opened the door, she flinched like I was going to hit her. It's over, I said gentle. Fire's out. You're safe. I'm not safe. Her voice was hollow. I'll never be safe. They'll keep coming until I'm dead or gone. I sat on the floor across from her, didn't want to tower over her, make her feel trapped. Then we'll keep fighting. Why? She looked at me then, really looked. You lost half your store because of me. Town's divided. You could have just let me go, saved yourself all this trouble. Trouble's just another word for doing what's right when it ain't convenient. She almost smiled. Almost. Your wife. She must have been a remarkable woman. She was. I pulled Dorothea's photograph from my pocket. Edges singed now, glass cracked, but her face still clear. She had this way of seeing people, not what they looked like or what they'd done, just who they were underneath all the hurt. Beatrice touched her scarred cheek. What do you see when you look at me? Someone who survived something that should have killed her. Someone who tried to save a man who didn't deserve saving. Someone who's stronger than she knows. Her hand dropped. For the first time since I'd met her, she held my gaze without hiding, without turning her ruined side away. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. Next, 3 days were strange. Town settled into uneasy peace. Half the folks wouldn't look at me, other half started bringing supplies, lumber for repairs, food. Mrs. Henderson brought a whole chicken pie, wouldn't take no for payment. My husband's ashamed, she said quiet, for not helping sooner. This is his way of apologizing. Beatrice started coming downstairs during the day, helped with inventory, swept the damaged floors, even served customers when they came. At first, she wore the shawl pulled low, hiding, but gradually, so gradual I almost didn't notice, she stopped covering her face. One evening after closing, we were washing dishes in the back room. Domestic scene, peaceful in a way I hadn't felt since Dorothea died. Beatrice was humming something, old hymn maybe, and I was drying plates. She reached for a cup and our hands touched. Just for a second. Just enough. She froze. I froze. Moment stretched like taffy. I'm sorry, she said, pulling back. Don't be. I'm not. I can't. She gestured to her face, her scars, all the damage her husband had done. Nobody wants. Stop. I set down the dish towel. You think the scars matter? You think that's what I see? It's what everyone sees. Then everyone's a fool. I took her hand, gentle, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. I see someone who's been through hell and came out the other side still caring about people, still trying to do right. That's what matters. Her eyes filled with tears. Elwood. You don't gotta say nothing. Just know you're safe here. Long as I'm breathing, you're safe. She squeezed my hand. Small gesture, but it felt like a promise. 2 days later, everything changed. Marshal Wickham showed up at 10 a.m. sharp, papers in hand. Got your warrant, Tate. Judge signed it this morning. I read it. Legal language, but the message was clear. Beatrice Hollins, wanted for questioning in the death of Thomas Hollins. Protective custody pending investigation. Judge Thompson signed this? Doc Simons had come running when he saw the marshal. He's Luke Hollins's poker buddy. This is a fix. It's legal, the marshal said flat. Miss Hollins, you need to come with me. Beatrice appeared at the top of the stairs, face pale. I'll go. I won't let them hurt Mr. Tate anymore. No. I stepped between her and the marshal. You take her, and the Hollins will make sure she never sees trial. You know it, and I know it. Step aside, Tate, or I'll arrest you too. Boy goes to county orphanage. He was using Oswin as leverage. Vicious, calculated, effective. Then Doc cleared his throat. Marshal, I'm here to provide medical testimony. Miss Beatrice is unfit for incarceration. Severe trauma, risk of self-harm. As her physician, I'm invoking Territorial Health Code Section 47. Patient must remain in established care environment pending psychiatric evaluation. The marshal's face went red. That's the law, Doc said firm. You want to challenge it? Take it up with the Territorial Medical Board. Until then, she stays. Standoff. The marshal knew he was beat, for now. Fine. But I'll be back with the circuit judge. 3 days, Tate. That's all you got. After he left, I turned to Doc. Section 47? Real law. Rarely used, but it's on the books. He smiled grim. Bought you 3 days. Better make 'em count. That afternoon, an old woman appeared at the back door. Marjorie Kemp, black midwife, maybe 70 years old, moving slow with a cane. I'd known her my whole life, but we'd never been what you'd call friends. Color line in Oklahoma was real as barbed wire. Mr. Tate, I need to speak with you. Private. We sat in the back room. She looked tired, sick even. skin gray, eyes yellowed. "I'm dying," she said without preamble. "Cancer. Doc says 2 months, maybe less. I'm sorry." "Don't be. Had a good long life." She leaned forward. "But there's something I need to say before I meet my maker. About Beatrice Hollins. About that fire." My heart started pounding. I was there that night. The Hollins house. I delivered babies for that family, 5 of them over the years. Was there because Beatrice was having contractions. She lost the baby around midnight. Thomas's beating caused it. He beat her while she was pregnant? Beat her till she miscarried. Then kept beating her because she'd told him she wanted to leave. Marjorie's voice shook. "I seen him grab her, throw her against the wall. Kerosene lamp fell. He started that fire, Mr. Tate. Was too drunk to get out. Beatrice tried to save him. I seen her go back in twice. But the smoke." "Why didn't you testify?" Her laugh was bitter. "I'm a black woman in Oklahoma. You think they'd believe me over a white family? They'd have lynched me for saying different. But you're telling me now? Because I ain't got time left to be a coward, and because you stood up when nobody else would." She pulled out a telegram. "I got a grandson, lives in Santa Fe, practices law. I sent for him. He's coming." Hope, fragile as spider silk, bloomed in my chest. Then Oswin burst in, face white as chalk. "Uncle Elwood, the bank, they're foreclosing. Tomorrow, papers are already filed." The hope died. Without the store, I had nothing. No collateral, no way to fight. The Hollands had outmaneuvered us again. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in the ruins of my store surrounded by burned shelves and ash, doing sums in my head that never added up right. Without the store, the bank would take everything. Without property, I couldn't post bond for Beatrice. Without bond, she'd go to jail. And in jail, the Hollands would make sure she never made it to trial. 42 years old, and I was about to lose everything for the second time. Around 3 a.m., I heard horses, multiple riders, moving fast. My hand went to the rifle, but then I recognized the voice calling out, "Mr. Tate? Elwood Tate?" I stepped onto the boardwalk. 3 riders, young man in a suit at the front, 2 others flanking him. The young man dismounted, extended his hand. "Isaiah Kemp, Marjorie's grandson. I'm an attorney out of Santa Fe." "You got here fast." Took the first train, then rode hard from the station. He was maybe 30, sharp-eyed, moving with the confidence of someone who knew their worth. "My grandmother told me everything. And I was there that night. I was 10 years old, but I remember." He pulled papers from his saddlebag. "I've documented everything I witnessed. The beating, the fire, Thomas Hollins's drunken rage. It's all here, notarized and official." Hope flickered again, small, cautious. "Your grandmother said you practice law?" 5 years now, specialized in territorial law and wrongful prosecutions." He smiled. "And I work pro bono for cases involving injustice. My grandmother is dying, Mr. Tate. This is her last wish. And mine." Doc Simons appeared from the darkness. Apparently, he'd been expecting Isaiah too. "Show him the photographs," he told Isaiah. "More papers. Medical documentation of Beatrice's injuries, time-stamped and detailed. Burns on her arms, defensive wounds, evidence of assault, proof that she'd been the victim, not the perpetrator." "The Hollands made a mistake," Isaiah said. "When Luke testified about paying Doc hush money, he confessed in open court to bribing a witness. That's a felony. It also shows consciousness of guilt. Innocent men don't pay for silence. But the foreclosure, I've already filed an emergency injunction with the territorial court." Isaiah's smile widened. "Claiming the foreclosure is retaliation for harboring a witness in a criminal investigation. Judge has to hear it before the bank can proceed. Bought you 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Wasn't forever, but it was something." "There's more," Doc said. "Isaiah, tell him about the law." Old Territorial Statute 1869. A widow may claim sanctuary with any man who posts bond for her character. It was meant to protect women in remote areas, but it's still on the books. "If you post bond, I told you I got nothing to post. You've got your word." Isaiah pulled out another document. Under the statute, your sworn testimony about her character counts as bond. It's archaic, rarely used, but it's legal. The Hollands can't touch her without proving criminality in court first. I stared at him. You're saying my word is enough? This territory was built on the notion that a man's word still means something. I'm betting the circuit judge remembers that. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Morning came cold and clear. The circuit judge arrived at 10. Judge Artemis Blackwood, riding in on a black gelding like something out of a storybook. Stern-faced, 60 years old, reputation for harsh sentences but fair hearings. The courthouse, really just the town hall with a bench installed, was packed. Whole town showed up. Holland's brothers in the front row, smiling like cats with cream. Marshal Wickham beside them. And in the back, quiet as shadows, Marjorie Kemp, Doc Simons, Mrs. Henderson, Jacob Moss, and a dozen others. People who'd found their courage. Isaiah stood when the judge entered. Your Honor, before we proceed with any hearings, I have emergency motions to file. Luke Hollins stood up. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Sit down, Mr. Hollins. The judge's voice could have cut glass. I'll decide what's irregular. Isaiah presented everything, the medical evidence, his eyewitness testimony, the documentation of the Hollins pattern of violence, the confession about bribery. The judge read it all. Silence stretched like wire about to snap. Finally, Mr. Tate approached the bench. I stood, legs unsteady. You're willing to post bond for Miss Hollins' character? Yes, Your Honor. You understand that if she flees or commits further crimes, you'll be held responsible? Yes, Your Honor. And you believe in your judgment that she's innocent of the charges against her? I thought about Beatrice's hands, always gentle, about the way she flinched at sudden movements, about her trying to save a man who'd beaten her, even as he burned. I believe she's the most innocent person in this room, Your Honor. The judge studied me for a long moment, then he looked at the Hollins brothers. Motion granted. Miss Hollins is released to Mr. Tate's custody pending trial. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into the allegations of witness tampering and bribery. He banged his gavel. Marshal Wickham, I'll need to speak with you privately. The marshal's face went white. Luke Hollins stood, fury in every line of his body. Your Honor, this is... I said sit down. The judge's voice dropped to freezing. And Mr. Hollins, I'll be looking into those fires Mr. Kemp mentioned. All 3 of them. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. We'd won. For now. Outside the courthouse, Beatrice grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. Her eyes were shining, not with tears, but with something I hadn't seen before. Hope. Thank you, she whispered. For believing in me. Wasn't hard. You're easy to believe in. Isaiah joined us, Doc right behind. Don't celebrate yet. The Hollins aren't done. They'll try something else. Let 'em try, I said. We got the law on our side now. But even as I said it, I saw Luke Hollins across the street, watching us. His face was calm, almost pleasant. That scared me more than rage would have. A calm Luke Hollins was a planning Luke Hollins. That night, I woke to the smell of smoke. Not from my store, from somewhere else. I ran to the window and saw it. Doc Simon's office, flames pouring from the windows, the medical records, the photographs, the evidence, all burning. And in the street below, a figure on horseback, silhouetted against the flames. Couldn't see his face, but I knew the shape of that hat, the way he sat his horse. Samuel Hollins. By the time I got dressed and ran outside, he was gone. By the time the volunteer fire brigade arrived, Doc's office was ash. Every piece of evidence we had. Destroyed. Doc stood in the street staring at the ruins of his life's work, tears streaming down his weathered face. I kept copies, Isaiah said quiet, appearing beside us. Soon as grandmother told me what was happening, I made copies of everything. Sent them to Santa Fe for safekeeping. You knew they'd do this? I knew they'd try. Isaiah's voice was hard. But I grew up watching my grandmother live in fear of white men's violence. I learned to think 3 steps ahead. Luke Hollins had underestimated him, had underestimated all of us, but we'd underestimated the Hollins too. Dawn was breaking when the marshal came, not to arrest anyone, to deliver news. Judge Blackwood's been called away. Emergency in the capital. Won't be back for 2 weeks, maybe more. My stomach dropped. What about the hearing? Postponed. Indefinitely. But the bond? Still valid. She can stay with you. The marshal tipped his hat. But Mr. Tate, 2 weeks is a long time. Lot can happen in 2 weeks. It wasn't a warning, it was a promise. The Hollands had bought themselves time, and time was the one thing we were running out of. 2 weeks turned into nightmares. The Hollands didn't attack. They didn't have to. They just waited, like wolves circling wounded prey. Every day the pressure mounted. Banks sent letters. Suppliers stopped deliveries. Customers stayed away, afraid of being seen helping us. Beatrice grew quieter, started covering her face again, started talking about leaving, disappearing into the territories where nobody knew her name. I'm destroying your life, she said one night. You're giving it meaning, I told her. But I could see the guilt eating at her, same way grief had eaten at me after Dorothea died. Then Marjorie took a turn. Doc said it was the cancer, spreading fast. She had days, maybe hours. Isaiah brought her to Doc's house, what was left of it after the fire, set her up in the spare room. I need to testify, she told the marshal. Dying declaration. It's admissible in court. Judge ain't here, the marshal said, but his voice had lost its edge. Even he could see which way the wind was blowing. Then bring him back. Isaiah's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Or I'll file complaints with the territorial governor about obstruction of justice, and we'll see how long you keep that badge. 3 days later, Judge Blackwood returned. Special session, he called it, emergency hearing. The courthouse was packed tighter than Sunday service. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, crowding the doorway. Whole territory wanted to see how this ended. Beatrice sat beside me, hands folded in her lap, shaking so hard I could feel it through the bench. I took her hand, held it tight. Whatever happens, I whispered, you're not alone. She nodded, but couldn't speak. Judge Blackwood entered, and the room went silent. He looked older than 2 weeks ago, the kind of tired that comes from carrying heavy decisions. This court is in session. He banged the gavel once. We're here to address the charges against Miss Beatrice Hollands in the death of her husband, Thomas Hollands. But first, I've received a request to hear testimony from Mrs. Marjorie Kemp. Given her condition, I'm allowing it. They brought Marjorie in on a stretcher. She looked like she was already half gone, skin gray as old paper, breath rattling in her chest, but her eyes were clear, sharp as broken glass. Isaiah helped her sit up enough to speak. The bailiff swore her in, hand on the Bible. Mrs. Kemp, the judge said gentle, tell us what you witnessed the night of September 12, 1934. And she did. Every detail. Thomas Hollands drunk and raging. Beatrice pregnant, losing the baby from his beating. The kerosene lamp fallen. The fire spreading. Thomas too drunk to move. Beatrice going back in twice, trying to save him. She could have left him, Marjorie said, voice barely above a whisper. Could have let him burn. But she didn't. That's who she is. That's who she's always been. Why didn't you come forward before? The judge asked. Because I'm a black woman in Oklahoma, Your Honor. You think they'd believe me over a white family? She coughed, blood on her lips. But I ain't got time left to be scared. I'm meeting my maker soon. I might as well meet him with a clean conscience. The courtroom was silent. You could have heard a pin drop on cotton. Then Luke Holland stood. Your Honor, with all respect to Mrs. Kemp, she's dying. Confused. The pain medications. Sit down, Mr. Hollands. The judge's voice could have frozen hell. I've heard enough. He looked at Beatrice. Miss Hollands, please stand. She stood, legs barely holding her. I stood with her, hand on her elbow. Based on the testimony presented and the medical evidence provided by Dr. Simons and Attorney Kemp, I'm dismissing all charges against you. You're free to go. The courtroom erupted, some cheering, some cussing, chaos everywhere, but the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, I'm issuing warrants for the arrest of Luke, Nathan, and Samuel Hollands on charges of witness tampering, arson, and conspiracy to commit murder. Marshal Wickham, you're suspended pending investigation into your conduct. The marshal stood, face red. Your Honor. Badge. Now. He unpinned it, threw it on the table, walked out without another word. The Hollins brothers tried to leave, but deputies blocked the doors. Luke's face twisted with rage. "This ain't over, Tate." "Yes," the judge said quietly. "It is." But it wasn't. Not yet. Outside the courthouse, Isaiah pulled me aside. "There's still a problem. Beatrice has nowhere to go. Her property's been seized by the bank. Hollins arranged it before the hearing. She's legally homeless." My heart sank. We'd won the battle, but I have a solution. Marjorie's voice, weak but determined. They'd brought her outside, stretcher and all. "Your Honor, I'd like to invoke the Adoption Act of 1871. The judge frowned. "Mrs. Kemp, under territorial law, I can adopt an adult if they're without family and facing destitution. I'm adopting Beatrice Hollins as my legal daughter and immediately assigning guardianship to Mr. Elwood Tate." The crowd went silent. "That's highly unusual," the judge said. "But legal?" Isaiah pressed. "Technically, yes, if both parties consent." He looked at Beatrice. "Miss Hollins, do you consent to this arrangement?" Beatrice stared at Marjorie, at me, at the people gathered around, Doc Simons, Mrs. Henderson, Jacob Moss, Oswin, all the folks who'd found their courage, who'd stood when standing cost something. "Yes," she whispered. "I consent." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Tate, do you accept guardianship?" I thought about Dorothea, about her promise, about the recipe box note. "Let love pour through you onto someone who needs it." "I do, Your Honor." "Then by the power vested in me, I declare Beatrice Hollins legally adopted by Marjorie Kemp, with guardianship assigned to Elwood Tate." He banged the gavel. "She's your family now, Mr. Tate." In the eyes of the law and God. Beatrice turned to me, tears streaming down her face, over the scars, over the damage, over everything her husband had done to her. But she was smiling, actually smiling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank Marjorie," I said. "She's the one who—" But when we turned around, Marjorie was gone. "Past peaceful," Isaiah said later. "Held on just long enough to see justice done, then let go. Her last act on this earth was giving Beatrice a family, giving both of us a family." That night, as we walked back to the store, my half-burned, barely standing store, Beatrice took my hand. "Elwood? Yeah? What happens now?" I looked at the ruins of my life's work, at the town that had divided over us, at the woman beside me who'd survived hell and come out still believing in goodness. "Now?" I squeezed her hand. "Now we rebuild." Behind us, Oswin carried Dorothea's recipe box, the only thing that had survived both fires. Inside it, Dorothea's recipes. And room for new ones, room for a future neither of us had expected, but both of us needed. The Hollins brothers were arrested that night, tried 6 months later. Luke got 10 years, Nathan 8, Samuel 5. Their empire crumbled without him, but that was still to come. For now, we just walked home through the dust, 3 people who'd found each other in the wreckage. And somehow, that was enough. 6 months between the hearing and the trial felt like a lifetime and an eye blink all at once. We rebuilt the store, bigger this time because half the town showed up to help. Guilt's a powerful motivator. Men who'd stood silent while the mob gathered now swung hammers and hauled lumber. Women who'd crossed the street to avoid us brought food and fabric. Even the bank manager quietly extended my loan, claiming it was administrative error that nearly foreclosed us. Nobody wanted to admit they'd been wrong. But helping us rebuild was their way of saying sorry without saying the words. Beatrice surprised me. Wasn't the broken thing I'd first met cowering in my storeroom? She had spine, always had I suppose, but it had been beaten down so long she'd forgotten. Now it was coming back. She took to keeping the store books, turned out she had a head for numbers, started serving customers without the shawl, scars visible, daring anyone to say something. Most folks looked away at first, uncomfortable. But gradually, they got used to it, started seeing her instead of just the damage. "Morning, Miss Beatrice," Mrs. Henderson would say, buying flour. "Morning, Mrs. Henderson. How's your husband's back?" Just normal. Just human. One evening, closing up, I found her standing at the front window, staring at the new sign we'd hung that morning. Tate Hollins General Store. Her name, right there beside mine. Equal. You didn't have to do that, she said quiet. Yes, I did. This is your home now, your store, your life. She turned, and the sunset caught her face. The scarred side, the damaged eye, all the proof of what she'd survived. But she wasn't hiding anymore. Elwood, I need to tell you something. My heart kicked. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's too soon. I know it's probably wrong. I know you still love Dorothea. Stop. I crossed to her, took both her hands. Dorothea wouldn't want me to stop living. She'd want me to find someone who needed what we couldn't give each other. Someone who could teach me how to be human again. And have I? Every damn day. I kissed her then. Gentle, careful, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. She leaned in, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I was home. The trial came in March of 35. Spring coming on, dust settling, world turning green again. They held it in the county courthouse. Real one this time, not the town hall. Judge from the territorial capital presiding, prosecutor from Oklahoma City. The Hollands had hired fancy lawyers from Tulsa, 3 of them in suits that cost more than my store. But Isaiah was ready. He presented everything: Marjorie's dying testimony, Doc's medical evidence, the photographs, the pattern of fires, the bribery confession. Built a case so tight even them Tulsa lawyers couldn't find cracks. Then came the witnesses. Jacob Moss testified about the threats, the hired guns, the $2 a day for security work. Mrs. Henderson testified about the atmosphere of fear the Hollands created. Doc Simons testified about treating 3 other women the Hollands had hurt, women too scared to speak up. The defense tried to tear 'em apart, but truth's got weight. You can't cross-examine it away. Then came the moment that changed everything. The prosecutor called Samuel Hollands to the stand. He'd been quiet through the whole trial, Luke doing the talking, Nathan glaring, Samuel just sitting, still as stone. I'd almost forgotten he was there. Mr. Hollands, the prosecutor said, did you set fire to Mr. Tate's store on the night of September 18, 1934? Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then, yes. The courtroom erupted. Luke jumped up, cursing. Nathan grabbed Samuel's arm, but Samuel shook him off. I'm done, he said, voice flat. I'm done lying for you, Luke. I'm done hurting people. I'm done pretending what we did was right. Samuel, shut your mouth. No. For the first time in his life, Samuel Hollands looked his older brother in the eye. I watched you kill our brother. Not Beatrice, you. The courtroom went dead silent. What? The prosecutor leaned forward. Samuel turned to the judge. Thomas was going to leave the family business. Said he wanted out, wanted to take Beatrice and start over somewhere clean. Luke couldn't allow it. Thomas knew too much about the fires, the threats, the money we stole. So Luke went to the house that night. You're a liar, Luke screamed. I was there, Samuel continued, voice steady now, like a dam breaking. I drove the wagon. Luke went inside, argued with Thomas. Thomas was drunk, started swinging. Luke knocked over the lamp on purpose, locked the door from outside, let him burn. Beatrice tried to get in. She did. Broke a window, crawled through. That's how she got burned, trying to save a man Luke had already killed. I should have stopped it, should have spoken up. But I was scared of Luke, same as everyone else. He looked at Beatrice, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. Luke lunged at him then, took 3 deputies to drag him back. Nathan just sat there, face white, world crumbling around him. The prosecutor looked at the judge. Your Honor, in light of this testimony, the territory moves to upgrade charges against Luke Hollands to murder in the 1st degree. Motion granted. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Luke Hollands, you're hereby charged with the murder of your brother, Thomas Hollands. Bailiff, take him into custody. They led Luke away, still screaming, still cussing. Nathan followed quiet, head down. And Samuel looked at Beatrice one more time. I can't undo what we did to you, he said, but I can tell the truth. It's the least I owe. Outside the courthouse, Beatrice collapsed against me, sobbing, not from sadness, but from release. 5 years of carrying blame for something she didn't do finally lifted. "It's over," I whispered into her hair. "It's really over." Isaiah joined us, grinning wide. "Samuel's testimony changes everything. Luke will hang, Nathan will get 20 years, and Samuel?" He shrugged. "He'll probably get leniency for turning state's evidence. Maybe 5 years." "Good," Beatrice said. "He deserves a chance to be better." Doc Simons appeared, medical bag in hand, always carrying it like a priest with his Bible. "Elwood, Beatrice, there's something you should know." "What?" "The night of Marjorie's death, she gave me something. Said to give it to you when the trial was over." He pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. "It's from Dorothea. She gave it to Marjorie 5 years ago, made her promise to hold it until the right time." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, Dorothea's handwriting. "My dearest Elwood, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've kept your promise. I knew you would. You always were too stubborn to quit when something mattered. I want you to know, it's okay to love again. It's okay to build a new life with someone who needs you as much as you need them. Love doesn't divide, Elwood, it multiplies. The love you gave me doesn't disappear just because I'm gone. It grows, spreads, finds new places to live. Take care of whoever you found. Take care of yourself. And remember, the best way to honor the dead is to live fully for them. All my love, across whatever distance separates us, Dorothea." I read it twice, 3 times, then handed it to Beatrice. She read it, tears falling on the paper. "She knew," Beatrice whispered. "Somehow, she knew." "She always did," I said. We stood there in the spring sunshine, surrounded by people who'd found their courage, holding a letter from a dead woman who'd orchestrated our salvation from beyond the grave. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt at peace. But there was still one thing left to do. We married in April of 35. Simple ceremony. Reverend Hoskins officiating, same man who'd stood helpless while they painted her shame on his church door. He apologized before the vows, voice breaking. "I should have stopped them," he said. "I should have been braver." "You're here now," Beatrice told him. "That's what matters." The whole town came, even folks who'd carried torches 6 months earlier. They brought gifts, quilts, preserves, hand-carved furniture. Guilt gifts, maybe, but we took 'em anyway. Forgiveness ain't about forgetting. It's about choosing not to let the past strangle your future. We stood at the altar, and I saw her, not the scars, not the damage, just her. The woman who'd survived hell and chose kindness anyway. The woman who'd taught me that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes shape. "I do," I said when my turn came. "I do," she echoed, voice clear and strong. Reverend Hoskins smiled. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." I kissed her, and the church erupted in applause. Doc Simons was crying. Oswin was grinning like a fool. Isaiah stood in the back, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Outside, in the spring sunshine, people lined up to congratulate us. Mrs. Henderson kissed Beatrice's cheek. Jacob Moss shook my hand so hard I thought he'd break it. Even the bank manager showed up, envelope in hand. "What's this?" I asked. "Paid in full." He cleared his throat. "Anonymous donor paid off your store loan. All of it." "Who?" "Can't say. But they wanted you to have this." He handed me a note. I unfolded it. Single line, handwriting I didn't recognize. "For keeping promises to the dead, a friend." I looked at Beatrice. She looked at me. We both knew. Samuel Hollins. Had to be. His way of making amends from behind bars. 3 weeks later, they hanged Luke Hollins. I didn't go. Wasn't interested in watching a man die, even one who deserved it. But Beatrice went. Said she needed to see it end with her own eyes. She came home quiet, thoughtful. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Empty," she said. "I thought I'd feel something. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction, but I just feel empty." That's because revenge don't fill the holes. Only livin' does. She nodded, leaned her head on my shoulder. Then let's live. The store thrived. Turned out, having both our names on the sign brought in customers, women especially. They came to buy fabric, stayed to talk with Beatrice. She listened to their stories, their fears, their secrets, became something like a counselor without meaning to. One day, a young woman came in, face bruised, moving careful like her ribs hurt. Can I talk to Miss Beatrice? She whispered. Mrs. Tate, I corrected gently. But yes, she's in the back. They talked for an hour. When the woman left, she was crying, but there was steel in her spine that hadn't been there before. What did you tell her? I asked Beatrice. The truth, that she deserves better, that help exists if she's brave enough to take it. That surviving ain't the same as living, and she's got every right to do both. Over the next year, 3 more women came. Then 5. Then a dozen. Beatrice started holding what she called afternoons. Women gathering in our back room, drinking coffee, sharing stories, building courage together. The church started calling it ministry. Beatrice just called it being human. 2 years after we married, Beatrice woke me in the middle of the night, hand on my shoulder. Elwood, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Her voice was strange, excited, scared, joyful. I'm pregnant. I sat up so fast I nearly knocked her over. Your doc confirmed it yesterday. Didn't want to say anything until I was sure. A baby. After everything she'd been through, the beating, the miscarriage, the fire, her body was giving her a second chance. Are you scared? I asked. Terrified. She smiled. But also hopeful. Is that strange? No. That's perfect. Our daughter was born in March of 37. We named her Dorothea Margaret, after my first wife and Marjorie Kemp, 2 women who'd shaped our lives from beyond the grave. The day we brought her home, Beatrice sat in the rocking chair Oswin had made, holding that tiny bundle, tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. She looked up at me, smiling through the tears. For the first time in my life, absolutely nothing is wrong. I kissed her forehead, then the baby's. Welcome home, Dorothea. 5 years after the trial, I got a letter. Prison stationery, return address from the state penitentiary, Samuel Hollins. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Mr. Tate, I'm getting out next month. Early release for good behavior. I wanted you to know I'm leaving Oklahoma, heading west, maybe California, starting over where nobody knows my name. I also wanted to say thank you for showing me what courage looks like, for proving that doing right matters, even when it costs everything. I'll never forgive myself for what I did to Miss Beatrice, Mrs. Tate, I should say, but maybe I can spend the rest of my life being the kind of man who wouldn't do it again. That's all any of us can do, I suppose. Be better than we were. Samuel Hollins. I showed it to Beatrice. She read it twice, then folded it careful and handed it back. Do you forgive him? I asked. I'm working on it. She touched her scarred cheek, habit she'd probably never lose. But I think I understand him now. Fear makes people monstrous, and courage is just fear that's found something worth fighting for. And what's worth fighting for? She looked around our store. The shelves Oswin had built, the sign with both our names, the back room where women gathered to find their strength. Then she looked at me. This, she said simply. All of this. 10 years later, standing on the boardwalk of Tate Holland's General Store, watching my daughter play in the dust with Oswin's kids, I thought about that August day in 34, the painted door, the mob, the fire, the way the whole town had decided shame was justice and silence was survival. And I thought about Dorothea's promise, the one that started all this. Don't let loneliness make you selfish. She'd known, somehow, she'd known that saving myself meant losing myself, and the only way to stay human was to risk everything for someone else's humanity. Beatrice came out, hand on my shoulder. Her scars had faded some, time does that, but they were still there. She never tried to hide them anymore. What are you thinking about? She asked. How one choice can change everything. Your choice to help me? No. I pulled her close. Your choice to accept help. My choice was easy. Yours was the brave one. She kissed me. Quick, familiar. The kind of kiss that comes from years of trust. We were both brave, she said, and we both chose right. Above us, the sign creaked in the wind. Tate Hollins. Two names, equal weight. Two people who'd found family in ashes and built something beautiful from the ruins. And in the distance, thunder rumbled. Not a dust storm this time. Real rain, coming to wash the land clean. Storm's coming, Beatrice said. Let it come, I replied. We'll weather it together. And we did. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this is just a story. Thinking things like this don't happen in real life. Maybe you're right. Maybe they don't happen often enough. But here's what I learned from Elwood and Beatrice and all of them. Dignity ain't something someone gives you. It's something they can't take unless you hand it over. Beatrice could have run, could have believed what the Hollands said about her, could have let shame define her, but she didn't. She stood, and sometimes standing is enough. Family ain't blood. Oh, blood matters, don't get me wrong. But family is who shows up when showing up costs something. It's the boy who saves the ledger in a fire. It's the old woman who tells the truth on her deathbed. It's the stranger who says, "You're coming with me," when everyone else looks away. And justice. Well, justice don't always roar like thunder. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it takes its sweet time. But it remembers. It always remembers. Elwood and Beatrice, they lived long lives, raised 3 children together, Dorothea and later 2 boys. The store stayed in the family for 40 years until the highways changed and small towns started dying. But that sign, Tate Hollins, it hung there until the day they closed the doors. 2 names, equal weight, proof that dignity won. Dorothea's recipe box still sits on the family mantle. Beatrice added her own recipes over the years right beside Dorothea's, and every Sunday their children touched that box and remembered, love doesn't end, it just changes shape and keeps on giving. So if you're carrying shame from something that wasn't your fault, if you're thinking about giving up, if you're wondering if standing up when everyone else sits down is worth the cost, it is. God help me, it is. Your Elwood's out there, your Dorothea's voice is still guiding you. Your story ain't over yet. And maybe, just maybe, you're someone else's "you're coming with me" moment waiting to happen. If this story touched you somewhere deep, let me know where you're listening from. I read every comment, and I believe in every one of you. Until next time, may your dignity carry you through the dust storms, and may you be brave enough to stand when standing costs everything, because that's what keeps us human.